Hi guys, my name is Katie or Kbdoesart, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to 3D model an hourglass in Maya. So I'm actually going to be using a reference. I have provided that in the description for you guys. Go ahead and get that, download it, and we are going to open that in the front view of Maya. So click space and go into the front view, click space again, and we can do view, image plane, import image. Go ahead and find wherever the reference was that you downloaded. We're going to click R and scale it on up and place it on the ground using W. I'm also going to click looking through camera, and I'm just going to turn up the color offset since I feel like it's a little dark. All right, so now that we have that all situated, I'm going to first just start with the base, which we're going to use a cylinder for. So you can go ahead and grab a cylinder. We'll push it up to match here and then scale it down and up to be about the width that it needs to be. I also am feeling like my reference isn't exactly centered, so I'm going to just push W and move that on over. All right, let's go ahead and bring this object about here. I'm going to scale it up just a little bit more. And then I'm going to go into edge mode. Let's hold shift, double click the top edge and the bottom edge. So we've got both of them. And then go ahead and bevel. And let's see how that bevel's looking. Could probably make the fraction a little bit higher. Okay, that looks good. So that is going to be the top and the bottom. So we can do Control D to duplicate and then move it on up to fit here. We're going to need another cylinder to make these pillars. So if you want to just go ahead and grab another cylinder and kind of center it here for this. I'm just going to elongate it until we hit the top and the bottom, maybe like about there. And try and center it. And then I'm going to hold Control and scale. Okay, no. I'm going to go ahead and just scale that down so it's a little bit thinner to kind of match our reference a little bit better, and then scale it on up to fit there. All right, we're gonna add some multi-cuts, but first let's go ahead and take this edge, go ahead and double click that, and then hold shift and double click this one. And we're gonna bevel it. I'm gonna give it 2 segments this time. Remember, beveling is Control B. I'm gonna use that shortcut a lot. I'm gonna also just down the fraction a bit so it's a bit like tighter, maybe like about there. Okay, don't forget to click 1 again and then go into wireframe mode, and this is where we're going to be using our multi-cut tool. So if you click Q, hold shift and your right mouse button and go to the multi-cut tool right there. If you hold control, you're able to very easily just make some easy loops that we can use to scale and create our I guess this is like a little column as a decoration. So now that I've just really quickly added these guys, all you're going to do is you're just going to click Q and grab your vertices. Just click and drag to select a whole row, and then just start kind of scaling them in by the center just to match your reference. So it should be like a really quick and easy process. You want to just go quick. Does not need to be precise at all. You can add multi-cuts kind of wherever else they're needed and just like scale those up. They don't need to be perfect. It's you can always change and move them. So just real quick, add all those multi-cuts in and scale them down and just go down the line. You can finish that on your model and then catch up with me when you are finished. Okay, so that is all of them. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Q and go into edge mode. So hold your right mouse button and go up to edge. And then I'm just going to be double clicking all of these like low places because these are places that I'm going to bevel so I can keep the really low kind of like valley. So once you've double clicked all those and held shift, you should have all of them highlighted like this. And then if you do Control B to bevel it, you can give it 2 segments and make a really small fraction so that when you press 3, your object will look something like this. So you've got some really clear kind of like peaks and valleys happening. Now what I want to do is I want to click W, and I'm going to be basically rotating my pillar around 3 times. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match this pivot and then pivot it around that center point. So go ahead and select your pillar, hold shift and select your object, and then do modify, match transformations, and we're going to match pivots. So that means that your pivot for your pillar is now at the same pivot that your top piece was. So now what we can do is we can duplicate Control D, and I'm going to rotate on the y-axis 120 degrees to get the second third of the circle, and then I'm going to duplicate that again, and I'm do negative 120. So now you have 3 pillars going around your object like this. All right, so our last step is to go ahead and grab a new cylinder, and we are going to be basically just making our center glass piece. So I'm just gonna scale my guy on up, and I'm going to grab my multi-cut tool again. Remember that is shift, right mouse button, and move on over to multi-cut. If you hold control and do the middle mouse button, you can get the midpoint of our object. So we can do the same thing on the top and bottom, is just using the middle mouse button to add in those like middle cuts for the top and the bottom. I'm going to select these vertices, and then I'll hold shift and select these guys and then just scale them on up. You can hold control and scale on the top axis, and that will get your shape following that silhouette like this. You can also scale this guy on down to fit this part. And then I'm just going to be going through adding some extra middle cuts and then going through holding control and scaling up so that they better fit our like rounded silhouette. You're going to need a couple, so totally feel free to just like add them in and then go through and kind of just start scaling. I'm going to scale the top down a little bit, scale this guy. So as you can see, I'm not being super precise with my following of the reference. If you want it to be like absolutely perfect to the reference, you totally can. I'm going to add a couple more and just follow that silhouette. This is another place where you need to add some multi-cuts to like really get this part cleaned up. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is if you press 3, you can kind of see how that's smoothing out a bit. I want to add in these little like stoppers, which is it's basically like an extra cylinder. So you can just grab our base cylinder, move it on up, and then just like scale it down, scale it up, and that'll be like just a little stopper that's kind of clipped into the top and also the bottom. So you can duplicate that and move it on up to clip the top like this. Okay, so now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to move this glass piece to clip both of those stoppers at the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and scale it up until it hits it, basically. All right. That looks good. So now on the top and the bottom, you can see we've clipped into those stoppers. Okay, so once you get that, that's really basically the model. This is all in the like smooth mode or 3. So if you press 1, this is kind of your more like low poly version. So you can smooth out your mesh if you would like to. I'll just like really quickly go through and texture it in Maya, just like to add some really quick material for you guys. You can just select the objects and then do assign a new material, do AI standard surface, and then I guess I'm just gonna make this like a darker color. I'm gonna make the rest of it metal. So I'll select those and assign a new material. I'm going to make it like a goldish, make it like a metal. Turn the roughness up just a little bit. And then this piece, what I actually want to do is do Control E to extrude it, and then do like 0.05 as the thickness, like something really small, does not need to be huge. And then we'll texture this like a glass texture. So that means I'll make the color really white, and then I'll up the transmission so that we can see through it. So obviously, we need some sand. So I think I might just form the sand from like a sphere. So you can grab a sphere. I'm going to change the subdivisions to be only 10. And then I guess I'm just going to scale it up and kind of fit it into this hourglass a little bit. We can kind of go like one by one on the vertices too. If you really want to like fit this like size. At this point, I'm going to start scaling down and moving it down to kind of form that pyramid shape. Maybe something like that. And then we can even kind of create this again if you just duplicate, move it on up, and we'll rotate it 108 degrees. Then you can kind of elongate it and push it, let's see, to about there. Then I'll grab the vertices and start moving these guys down to fit the silhouette of my hourglass like that. And then this top portion, you can just kind of like scale in or down. Maybe like about there. So obviously both of these are a little rough, so you can kind of click 3 on both of those objects to smooth it out. Also, you can see it's clipping right here, so you're going to want to either like move the vertices. Let's see. Like move these vertices a little up so that it's not clipping through the bottom. There we go. And then we need to texture that to be like a sand texture. So if you do assign new material, we can do AI standard surface again. But this time I think I want to use like a granite texture. And then I'm just gonna change these colors to be like a sand-ish texture. So like this will be a like a yellow, maybe like that. And then we can change these to just be like little sand particles inside. I think that would be cool. Maybe something like that. You can turn the cell size down and just kind of play with this a little bit. I think that should be good. I'm going to make this like a pure white, I think. Okay. So now that we've got that all kind of situated, I'm going to go to Arnold, get a sky dome light, and I'm going to save this before I start like rendering anything out. So remember to save. And then let's go ahead and do Arnold render, kind of see how it's turning out here. I'm also going to change some of my render settings real quick. You guys can kind of change them to whatever you see fit. I usually do 1920 by 1080, but that should be good. And then let's go ahead and zoom out. So the sand is looking good. The glass texture, I think I'm gonna make a bit clearer. It seems a little foggy right now. So I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna delete my construction history because my Maya's running a little slow. And then we can find our glass, which is here. I'm noticing that my gray is like not pure white. So I'm just gonna change that to be like a pure white. Also change my roughness down. That'll make it a bit more see-through as well. And that should be good. I'm gonna make this again like a more pure white. All right, so now we've got that. We're gonna want to kind of play around with some of these textures. So I'm going to, the specular should be fine. Same with the color. The transmission, probably that is good. I'm gonna let that render to kind of see how that's turning out. I'm gonna play around with the IOR to see kind of how it can better represent like the sand within it. It almost kind of seems like we've got some like emission going on here with this texture. So I don't really know why it's doing that. I'm gonna bump my resolution down a little bit. Just so it doesn't take so long. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to turn up the emission to look like that. And now you can kind of see the glass rendering out. It is a little rough, so like if you wanted to make it a little bit more like reflective, you can kind of turn down the roughness that it has. I think this metal, I'm actually gonna make the top and the bottom just a slightly different, like darker metal color. Just to give it like some variation. All right, so let's see how that's rendering out. I'm also just going to give it, I usually put a plane under my models to see how the shadows are playing out. I'll just give it like the checker texture, and then we'll have to double check if it's sitting on the ground. Okay, that looks better. All right, so as you guys can see, that's basically it for our texture. Um, if you want to kind of make those textures a little bit more like glossy or rough, you can play around with the roughness and the metalness. So that'll all be something that you can kind of play around with. So I hope you guys fun. I'm really excited to see what you guys kind of come up with. And if you have any issues or anything, please let me know. I would love to help you guys out. But yeah, you guys can check out my newsletter. I usually send out one every month just saying what's coming up. And I also have a virtual tip jar if you feel inclined to do that. But yeah, I hope to see you guys in the next tutorial. Bye, guys.